Welcome everyone to the Google for Education Did You Know series for today. This is getting started with the Google Admin Console, users, devices, and configuration options. So certainly I'm excited to see everyone. My name is Jason Hilt. A little bit about me is I'm a Director of Technology in Lower Moreland Township School District, which is right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know many of you like to add in the comments where you are, so feel free to do that. And that's a good time to also mention, if you have questions, please use the chat. And there will certainly be time for questions at the end. And if it's a timely question that I can answer during one of the sections, I'm perfectly happy to do that. And if you attended the session last week with Eric, he did mention that if you're able to answer a question that's asked, feel free to do that as well. We can work together and be a community of learners here today. So welcome. This is a 30-minute session, so I want to make sure that we stick to that and we get started right away. But so first and foremost, welcome. Secondly, I want to make sure if you signed up and you're here, you most likely saw this RSVP page. But I do want to call your attention to, and thank you to Kiker Learning and Google for Education for hosting these. I do want to mention that these are every Tuesday until May 31st. And even though each of the slides that you're going to see has a shortened URL to the slide deck that you're more than welcome to follow along with if you'd like to, you don't need to. You can sit back and relax because the slide deck and recording are actually already posted on this page. So this is the RSVP page. If you'd like to add a few more to your calendar, please go ahead and do that. The IT specific sessions are every other week. So you'll see Eric next week and you'll get the most out of Google Classroom. And then I'll be back on the 3rd for the first of 2 parts related to the investigation tool. So let's get rolling with Admin Console introduction. You can see for the agenda and at the top of the deck, if it's a little bit small, it's goo.gle/April 19th. That's the slide deck. And the RSVP site is also up there /Did You Know. This is an introduction. So if you're thinking to yourself after the session today, I'd really like to know more about security, we got you covered. In 2 weeks, and you want to learn even more about security, we've got you covered 2 weeks after that. And we want to make sure that we talk about, since it's top of mind, security related to the Admin Console. But today, introduction. And it's a Did You Know series, so I'm going to show some things for individuals who are either new to the Admin Console or maybe changing editions, going with Education Plus. And I'm going to show you some of those features. And then probably one of the nicest things in the session is the resources, so you can learn more about it. We'll also talk about sustainability. So let's get started with an introduction. This is a screenshot. I'm also going to pull up the Admin Console live, and rather than use a demo site with no users, I'm going to use some live Admin Console data and then some demo users within that environment. But I wanted to show you what it looks like so that you get an authentic view of what a school district Admin Console looks like with devices and people. And we're going to get started. So this is the screenshot, and we've got Atlanta, New York, Kansas, got Ohio, Texas. Nice to see all of you. Harrisburg, PA. Hey, Chris, you're right to the west of me. Let's go into the Admin Console. So that was a screenshot. This is a live view. I want to just call your attention to a few things. So this is the very quick tour. And with most Google products, there's a couple different ways to get to the same location. With Docs, you've got, you can go to Drive, you can go to docs.new, create a new doc. You can go to your, if you have a shortcut for it. So very similar in the Admin Console. I can get to users from this main page. I can also get to users from the directory. I can get to devices here and devices here. Some of this is personal preference and some of it's muscle memory. If you've been in the Admin Console for many years like I have, the look and feel has changed, and in a good way. That there are tiles now, and I'm just going to show you some of the things that an admin would be doing each day, and that would be interacting with directory information with users and groups, devices certainly, and security. Maybe not daily, but definitely frequently. Would you be interacting, or you would be interacting with reporting? So this would be at an IT level, providing information to building principals about device usage or app usage or users. This could be for a school board meeting to either justify expenses or to highlight some of the great things that districts are doing. And if you're a higher ed participant in the session today, This parallels directly with higher ed. You can talk about uses within departments or areas of the university or colleges or whatever higher ed institution you may be familiar with. I'm going to show you billing. You don't spend a lot of time in there. I'm going to show you how to add licenses to users. So you may be in there every once in a while. Once you set it, the nice thing is those licenses can be applied automatically. And then certainly rules in account are things that you would be in. But once those rules are set, the nice thing about the admin console is there's a few places that you can utilize on a daily basis, but you're not burdened. You don't need to hire 10 or 15 extra employees to be able to manage this because it's a single pane of glass. One relatively new, but not new today, but relatively new feature that I really like on this dashboard is the product updates. I have the Google Workspace product updates bookmarked, and it's something I go to frequently because I like to stay ahead of any update. So for example, with being able to compose an email draft in Docs now by using the Smart Canvas. I'd like to get out ahead of that, let people know ahead of time this is coming. Since we are rapid release districts, we've fallen within that. There's always a category or window of deployment. Having this on the dashboard now is just nice. I don't need to go anywhere else. I can see product updates. If I want to see more, I can always go to view all. And as I mentioned, many of the items on the left-hand side on the navigation are also available as tiles. And that is the quick tour. And I'm glancing, and Renee, I appreciate that. I'm going to show you a site where you can take a look at all of the different editions. But in terms of the look and feel of the admin console, this is what it would look like with multiple editions. And within the security panel and within some of the other features, there would be some subtle differences based on the edition. But when you log into the admin console, regardless of the edition that your school or district has subscribed to, the look and the feel would be the same. It would just be within those menus. There would be some subtle differences based on the edition. So really great question. And the reason why that's nice is if you're transitioning to the Plus, you don't have to worry about learning a whole new system because the look and the feel is very streamlined. All right, so let me go back to the slides. Brief tour. Certainly this is an intro. You're not going to learn everything that you need to know about the admin console look and feel today, but that can get you started with everything's in one place, single pane of glass, and it's a phenomenal dashboard to work in each day. So these are the highlights. We may not look at all 8 of these, but the resources are linked, which would include all this information. So let me tell you what just a kind of a day in the life of an IT director or a systems admin or network admin. These are the main topics that you would be working with. And many of them, like groups, you set. If it's a dynamic group, you set it and forget it. If it's a manually created group or synced, then you can go in there and make those changes if you need to. But we're going to talk about users. I'm going to show you the process. We're going to talk about groups. I'm going to show you the process for creating and accessing. And then I'm also going to talk about org units. And for those of you who may not have an IT background, it's not a highly complex term. It basically divides up either users or devices into groups, and then you can set preferences and security features based on those groups. So at the highest level, it would be people and devices, and from there it would be teachers, administrators, and students. And then from devices, it would be Chromeboxes, Chromebooks, Chromebases, those types of things. And so let's jump into the demo. We're going to start with users. So as I mentioned, this is a fully functioning admin console. Created a few demo users, and I'm going to show you how to create another one from scratch. But keep in mind, there's a couple different ways to do this. One is with a CSV. You can upload all of your users at once, all of the information, email addresses, passwords. They can be reset if you needed to do that. You can do singletons as a new employee or a new student enrolls or a new employee is hired. And you can also move a student from grade 6 to grade 7, a teacher from one building to another. Let me show you a couple of those things. So first and foremost, we're going to add a new user. The nice thing about this is a lot of the fields are pre-filled. So we're going to go demo, and we'll just call this user. I think I'm up to 90 now. Demo user 90, pre-populated. We'll do demo 90, and we're going to add this new user. Once that new user is created, an email can be sent automatically. and providing that information for, I was waiting for this to happen. And here it is. Just want to show you how secure this is. Authenticating whenever you're creating accounts is certainly important. So we've got that demo user 90 in there. Active added recently, hasn't logged in yet. And let me show you some of the things you can do with users at a high level. One of the nice things is from the user level, you can add information if you want to create dynamic groups. And dynamic groups is exactly as it sounds. If you have a department like science, you can create a dynamic group where there would be a distribution email account, and anyone who's added to the science department would automatically be added to that group. So this person doesn't belong to any, obviously is not, doesn't have admin roles, and you can see that we have automatically assigned licenses, and those can be removed. Certainly if someone leaves your organization, you wouldn't want to tie up a license, and that is next on the list. The recommendation generally is not to delete a user, although you can. That's one of the options on the left-hand side. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Suspending a user and removing the license would be a best practice, and to ensure that if they owned any documents that haven't been migrated, that people wouldn't lose access to it. You can also restore data if someone accidentally deletes their data, and you can change where they are in the organization. Suspending and deleting are a click. And as I mentioned, you can remove those licenses or assign those licenses. So now that I've created a new user, we're going to go back to demo accounts, and I'm going to show you a few ways to assign licenses. And this is one of the most important features, because if you have 325 staff members, but you need the Education Plus licenses for 300 of them, you wouldn't want to automatically assign them. If you have 400 licenses and 350 staff members, or 1,000 licenses and 900 staff members, automatically assigning would probably be the way to go. So as I mentioned, we're not in billing very often, but today's the day. We're going to go to subscriptions, and we have, this is the Plus. It's considered legacy simply because this was a multi-year subscription, but this is the Plus. We have the fundamentals, and then we have the Plus for students. So you can see we automatically assign students, and we strategically assign for staff members because of those. And I left one available strategically today. So we're going to go ahead and click on this, and you can see purchased, assigned, and then default setting for managing licenses, the auto assign is off. And as you can see for the subscriptions with students, auto assign just makes sense. If you have more, you can turn that auto assign on, and certainly with 285 available, you could do that. So with subscriptions, the nice thing is if you needed to automatically assign them and you manage them, it is a click of the pencil to automatically assign. You can decide if you want to auto assign. This would be for staff, this would be for students. But once you've done that, you've set up the admin console, and you can see that anytime there's a call out or a change from something that's inherited, if it's overridden, you would be able to see that. So I'm going to click cancel, and I'm going to go back to those users and show you how to assign it. You automatically assign it, you get a new hire, and you want to move them into a different organizational unit. You can absolutely do that. We're going to go to demo accounts. We're going to go demo user 90. And by simply clicking on the licenses, you can assign or not assign if they're available to you. So you can go toggle that on. As long as they're available, you can do that. There's a third way, and you can change subscriptions and you can change licenses. As I mentioned, you can upload users using a CSV. You can also change and add licenses using that CSV. There is a column that you can assign a license. You can do that for 500 employees all at once. So a lot of different ways to meet the objective. And I mentioned it briefly, but also want to mention again that there is a directory sync. So if you have Active Directory running or Azure AD, you can sync with your Google Workspace instance, and then the organizational units would be set up in AD, and they would sync over. So you'd have grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 staff members. And that's something that we have up and running. So we make changes in Active Directory. They're synced over to Google Workspace. We also have password sync running, which allows you to change a password in AD, or you can change all of the kindergartners' passwords when they start school, and then they would sync with Google Workspace. So there are some other options. I wanted to give you the manual one at a time, all the way up to your entire environment can be synced if you so choose. Real brief, so we have the subscriptions. You got Plus, Legacy, Fundamentals, and it doesn't need to be everyone. You can strategically, as I mentioned a few times, assign those licenses. And then once the everyone is where they need to be within their organizational units, it makes sense to create groups for sending emails. So that we have this set up for students where we can email an entire grade level by using the graduation year. And you can set up, if you have an outside organization where you have some internal stakeholders and some outside organization folks who are part of the group, you can email them as well with by setting up a group. So I just created a quick one here, new demo group. You can certainly rename it. You can add members, and you can see who is a member of it by inspecting those groups. But it's as easy as groups, create a group, you name it, and you said we're going to go demo group 2. And then you just need to add an email address. Pick an owner. This is just going to be our demo account as the owner, and we're going to click next. This is where you can get pretty granular with who can email. Certainly, if you have a restriction set up where students wouldn't be able to email groups, that would make sense. Or you may want only an admin team to be able to add to send and receive from a specific email address. But at a high level, you can get very granular with how restricted a group is, and especially if you're using it for emailing, it saves a lot of time and energy. And if it's dynamic, as I mentioned before, we have resources for dynamic groups available in the slides. As long as you have directory information, so department math, once that information is added, you can create a dynamic group for the entire math department. Anybody who joins the department or leaves would either be added or removed, which works really well. Otherwise, you can add individuals to groups. So if we go to demo user 90, we can see whether they're in a group or not. And in this case, they don't belong to a group, and we can easily add them to a group if we wanted to. So I wanted to mention that, and you can take a look at all of your groups if you choose to. The third item for this section is org units. If you're syncing with Active Directory, that work is being done for you. If you are syncing with, if you're not syncing with Active Directory, then you can create the organizational units. One of the other nice things is if you have, like for example, here I have a Google Apps admin. This doesn't live in Active Directory, even though we sync, which means I can make changes within this organizational unit, and I don't need to worry about anybody's accounts being suspended or overwritten, which is nice. So just a quick overview of what this looks like. We have Chrome OS devices, Chrome-based, Chromebook, Chromeboxes, and then we have some demo devices. And I created some demo OUs just to show you how quick and easy that is. But what can you do with organizational units? One is you can assign apps, you can assign subscriptions, and you can turn services on and off. And by service, I mean if you don't want your kindergartners or your freshmen, if you're higher ed, to have access for email for some reason, you can have it on for everyone except for that organizational unit. So the main reason to keep that organized and to create those is to allow you to work with services and turning the services on and off at a high level. You can also enable printing and have a couple other settings if you so choose. So you can manage, you can create them, you can manage them, and you can turn services on and off, as I mentioned before. We're going to keep moving here. We're going to talk about devices. Looks like a couple questions came through. We're going to answer those and circle back to any other. So keep posting questions if you have those. We're going to talk devices, and I have one here as a visual aid. It's a Chromebook. That's the one I'm going to be referencing in the admin console, but which I wanted to show you that you can quickly and easily receive a Chromebook, have it enrolled in a student's hands in between 1 and 5 minutes, depending on how you have it set up. So I want to give you a couple options. There's a manual enrollment option. So we're going to go to some device details here. And we're not going to get too into the weeds with today because this is an intro. But once your account is set up and you have licenses, you can enroll devices in-house by using an enrollment username and password. The nice thing is you can have one that places the devices at the top level, or using specific email addresses, you can have them already assigned to grade 3, grade 4, freshman, sophomore, junior, and really take the guesswork out of where they're going. And then once they're in the correct location, whether it's a grade level, a building, or a department, you can pull that device up. And as I mentioned, I have it right here in front of me, but this is the information about it. And let me zoom in a little bit here. And if this is your first time taking a look at a device in the admin console, this is a Chromebook. It's a Dell Chromebook 3100 2-in-1, which means it's a touchscreen. You can take a look to see if it's up to date with its OS. Certainly it's not. It's still at 93. And I didn't run the update just so you could see what this would look like. If it's compliant, that's great. If you have state testing coming up, which most states do, or you're in the middle of it now, you certainly want to make sure that that OS is up to date. You can run reports. So you don't have to, certainly if you have 10,000 devices, you don't have to look through here and see if they're all compliant. You can run reports and see what that looks like. You can have custom asset fields. If it's a school district, you may add in a note here about repairs. You can see system activity. The last user was a demo 1 user. You can see memory usage, and you can even see the temperature of the CPU, which is reported. So a lot of good information. And one thing that we use in this dashboard screen is if we have a lost device, we can quickly and easily see where it is on campus by putting in the MAC address, and we can see what access point it last connected to if it's on campus. So works well. You can add in directory information for these devices, and then you can sort and filter and do reports. You can add in the asset IDs. There are a couple options for enrollment. As I mentioned, that's manual. There's zero touch. If you work with your Chromebook distributor and Chromebook vendor, this is a really nice feature. When you get the devices, you power them on, they're enrolled. So if you purchase 20, it may not be necessary, but if you purchase 2,000 or 3,000 or maybe 25, zero touch works well. And not highly technical. You just need to work with your vendor, but that is an option. So you get them, you take them out of the box, they're ready to go. One thing that we always do as a protection in place is forced re-enrollment, because if you Google, and students do, how do I circumvent the protections on a device, and power washing is a very popular hit on YouTube. Once a device is power washed, if you have forced re-enrollment set up, it will rejoin your domain, and it'll rejoin your account, which helps with any kind of loss prevention. And then with device OUs, as I mentioned before, you can simply move a device. So right now, this is in a demo device OU. I can quickly and easily move it. And now, why would you want to do that? Well, if it's a state testing or a device for a special purpose, like a board meeting, but you need it for another reason, you can move it to another OU that has different apps assigned to it. So that would be a practical reason. Or when seniors graduate, either from high school or from secondary ed, and you need to move those devices to another grade level, you can quickly and easily move those devices. And it doesn't need to be a singleton, but I wanted to let you know that that is an option for you. With apps, one of the greatest features and the nicest features, having worked with other systems, is the way that apps are deployed. So I want to quickly show you. I keep mentioning state testing because that's happening in Pennsylvania as we speak. Districts are prepping for it. I know throughout the country that happens at various times. There are kiosk apps, and let me click on this. And at a high level for demo devices, as I showed you before, we've got a couple here. We've got DRC Insight, which I think 25 states use. We've got TestNav, Riverside, and then within the different OUs, you can have AP testing. You can have testing for English learners, the WIDA testing, and really anything one. So kiosk mode. You turn you lift the lid. The Chromebook powers on. You enter one of these apps, and the students are locked in. So if you're familiar with what kiosk mode does, similar to a lockdown browser, but the students are locked into that app. And it's a requirement for some specific apps, but that's certainly available to you. And then from the user level, you can assign, so we have demo devices, you can assign any apps that you'd like to. And as I mentioned, if students are graduating, that seniors are now going to be kindergarten Chromebooks, you can quickly and easily move that, and you don't need to worry about reassigning apps. As long as the kindergarten device OU is set up correctly, they're good to go. So it really makes the management of those devices simple. There's a couple different things that you can do with requests. So if you have a setting where you're blocking except for those that are allowed, there is a process for requesting. Some districts just use a Google form, but there's a request process, and those requests would come through. You can see the queue is empty. Those requests would come through, and you can make those decisions about adding those. There is a mention of communication, which I'll touch on in 30 seconds or fewer, with some templates and things that you can communicate with parents and guardians. So if you're just starting out with Chromebooks across the board, you can absolutely do that. I mentioned kiosk apps. You can turn on and off services, as I mentioned, by OU, and device settings. You can have grade 9 can print, grade 8 cannot. You can get very granular with those settings. You can also set a custom wallpaper. So the scenario would be you're having an art show. You want to highlight some of the really great student works. You can set the wallpaper for all high school Chromebooks to be the art show winner. Or I think what's coming up, practical for senior cap and gown pickup. Set the wallpaper for all senior Chromebooks to be an announcement for that. Auto update is great. Now that device that I showed you hasn't been turned on recently. As soon as it connects to Wi-Fi, it's going to auto update. And one thing for administrators that I think is wonderful, you do have access to inactive device reports. In a one-to-one environment, that's important. If you still have Chromebooks in carts, which in some cases, that's the best way to do it, you can see if those carts are being used. You can set up those reports. So at a high level, you can get all the information that you need. A couple links here. I'm going to spend maybe a minute on each. One with case studies is something you can take a look at after this event. Education Plus, I want to call out. So sustainability, you can afford it now. And the goal with sustainability is you can afford it in the future. So the nice thing about auto updates and expirations, that's set. I believe that this device was 2026. So you're going to get those updates until 2026. Some cases those are extended, but you can plan for 5 or 6 or 7 years of use out of the Chromebooks. And as I mentioned with Education Plus, you have access, you can compare the editions. So the first question was about the admin console look and feel. You can compare the editions and see what those differences are. I called out Plus. We're Plus customers here. And I can't think of a better solution for just about every organization out there, just because of the security, which we're going to talk about in the second and third sessions. But some of the other features from support, you can look at the editions and make a decision for yourself. And then there's also some upgrade options. But I wanted to make sure that you had access to that site. Chromebook options are, again, with sustainability, you want to make sure that if you have, or if you're going to be using, let me zoom in a little bit. That's not the right way. If you're going to be using a Chromebook for, as I mentioned, 6 or 7 years, you want to make sure that that it's the right purchase for your organization. And in this document, it's going to allow you to see basic classroom use, learning anywhere, and advanced use, because there are some really, really phenomenal Chromebooks out there and Chrome OS devices. And then case studies. From, what does it say? Grade school to grad school. I've taken a look at a couple of these. Are great. You can filter by Education Plus. You can filter by different products. We'll just go Workspace for Education Plus. And then you can see, and oftentimes school boards or other administrators ask, well, are there other districts who are doing what we're doing, or they're planning on doing what we're doing? Well, absolutely. And you can take a look and see. Anaheim, I don't know if anybody from California is, or close to Anaheim, is in the session. Got a little case study here. One of the other nice things about this is from these case studies, you can also learn more about the different editions and exactly what's being spoken about. So you have Eric Greenwood, the Chief Technology Officer, the CTO, and many, many, many case studies. So I want to make sure that you had those resources. You can hear from other educators. All right, let me do resources, and then we're going to come back to the questions. Resources, it's already linked. If you go to goo.gle/did you know, all of these resources the slide deck is linked. You can take a look at the map if you want to familiarize yourself. There's some videos and webinars. There's an admin help center specific to the admin console. I wanted to make sure that all of you understood the multiple ways of provisioning the education licenses. This is a great document. I want to take a look at this. You have different editions, and you have different ways to assign those. I showed you 3, it might be 4. moving suspended users, automatically assign the licenses, and you can override those settings if you choose to. So really great resources, workspace community, and as I mentioned already, the Did You Know training series page, which is where we started. I'll leave this up on the screen, and we're going to talk about restoring data is a question. So there's a question when you go and you look at a person, we got demo user 90, got restore data, and you can choose either Drive or Gmail. So I want to make sure specifically, let me zoom in on this so you can see that. You can go from the date. You've got 25 days. So all right. So you got 25 days. We've got limit Wi-Fi networks students may log into. That's an admin console setting, absolutely. So when we have a student Chromebook, the devices automatically connect to the student network, and you can set that up for devices. You can also set that up for if you have multiple networks. So that's an admin console setting that would be set up, and then you're good to go. You know that it's going to connect correctly, and then you know that the network will be managed and filtered correctly. So I appreciate that question. And let me take a look and see if there's any others. Looks like we're good, and we're at the bottom of the hour. It's 1:31 Eastern, so I want to respect everyone's time. Let me go back to the slides. Thank you for your questions. I know there were a few in there. It looks like they got answered. I'm just scrolling through. The links are there. Yes, you can use GoGuardian. You can block in both if you wanted to, but you can use GoGuardian to filter and block. Wi-Fi networks we covered. All right. Thank you very much for, let me go back. I think there's a thank you. There we go. Thank you very, very much for joining today. That's a very quick 32 minutes. So thank you for your time. We certainly appreciate that. If you haven't already, please RSVP to future sessions. Deep dive into security. Mentioned it a few times. There are some key features. Investigation tool, which has recently been updated with some new features. The dashboard and security how. Oh, it does say deep dive. We're not messing around. Google Meet, and then access data controls to keep your users secure, and admin console management best practices. I think these all look great. Don't forget about accessibility features. So with that, thank you very much. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we see you at a future session.